Okay, this is the 2025 Toronto Grand Prix men's 100 meter butterfly heat 1. We are looking at Aiden Harris in lane 2 and we're looking at Ben Loewen in lane 4. Let's watch and then we're going to review. Okay, so let's start off with you, Aiden. Lane 2. Checking our position on the blocks. Let's see where you set for take your marks. I'd say that's a bit of a wide stance. Usually not what we see. We usually see too narrow of a stance, but maybe you could have a little bit more of an instep on that back leg. We're looking for something, it's a little hard to tell. Let's, be honest here. You might be shoulder widths here, and that's fine. Again, maybe it's a little wide. I'd at least like to see maybe your big toe in. But again, kind of, honestly, it's hard to tell from this perspective. Maybe it's perfect. Maybe I really like this if I was, looking at you right beside you. Just from this perspective in this video, it looks a titch wide to me. Thinking about maybe, your big toes width inside on that back foot, or thinking about being underneath this hip and this foot being underneath that hip, right? So hip width. Swimmers have really wide shoulders generally, right? So shoulder width isn't the same thing for most people compared to us. Let's see that again. So let's take your marks. Let's see what moves first, if we can tell from this perspective. Okay, so a flinch and a settling. We saw that back leg dip, so maybe there's a bit of a press happening. Hard to tell in this perspective, but it looked like you flinched more than you pressed off that back foot. Overall, though, that looked like a pretty nice dive once you got into the air. Maybe our hands are a little bit, are they splayed? Hard to tell. Again, let's see. They don't look to be splayed. Looks like good entry. Looks like a good entry overall, man. I like that. Hard to tell with the glare what our kick is doing. Let's see, that's first stroke again. That looked very wide to me for a second there. Yeah, real wide. If I gave you this freeze frame and let's cut out all the other guys that we can tell it's butterfly. What does this stroke look like to you? Looks like breaststroke to me. That's how wide this pull is, okay? If I asked you to hop a fence, you wouldn't set your hands this wide apart on the top rail. Okay, talking about like a 5-foot fence or something like that. Like, you wouldn't reach out all the way there. You'd put them in shoulder width position, basically, right? If I asked you to do pull-ups and you were doing them from here, that's ultra wide, right? So, it's not the strongest position. It's not the strongest pull, ultimately. And that looks like a theme of your butterfly, if I had to guess. All these strokes are aligning with that. That last stroke looked a bit better, but it might just be the perspective difference that we're looking like we're a bit more in shoulder width. Something else to consider? Ooh, never mind. Those did it. So it's the last stroke cycle. I think You kind of slicing into the water from the sides there. That one, check that out, because you're letting your wrist bend like that, and now you're not only kind of torquing your shoulder in a not nice way, albeit we're encountering like a little resistance from the water, which in the grand scheme of things is not much resistance, but this is kind of the thing where lots of swimmers end up injuring themselves. It's these tiny repetitive things that occur that they do thousands of times in a season, tens of thousands of times when it comes to freestyle injuries. It's just not first of all, let's just even ignore the injury proneness and if it is or not. This is not a good way to swim fast, right? You're encountering the water outside of streamlined body position. You're hacking in from the side, which is like, it's not even putting the brakes on, it's like you pushing out away from yourself, which is going to be putting us with momentum backward. Let's watch full speed. And it looks, we're cutting you off. Let's skip up. Gosh, that breakout looked better. We're not looking at the underwater elements, but like, see how you're landing almost in streamline? Like, yeah, obviously your hands aren't together, but we don't need our hands together in butterfly. Like, we don't need to be that specific about it. But like, it's like right in front of, if not inside your shoulder width. If every stroke, and like, look at the follow-up stroke. Boom. And then slap. Way out here. Way out again. That was a bit better on that one. I'd say maybe a bit better on that one. That one you hit the water a little early. Now you're doing a finger drag freestyle in the last two strokes. Wide again here, right? So getting us all the way around is going to be key. Maybe doing a scapular retraction. You already look like you're doing one, so maybe a bit more, but literally raising our shoulders up another inch is going to preserve our distance, right? If our wrists were literally a little bit higher here, rather than getting this, calling this around is pretty hard, but compared to a full scapular retraction, this is a rounded back in a way. Let's compare it. Let's compare. It's never a bad thing to compare yourself to the men and women that you're competing with and against, because we can learn from all sources. But we see how far out Ben is getting on his strokes. He's getting all the way out and around. Look at how high his shoulders are in the water. You can see his pits. And yeah, is that perfect? No. But that kind of stroke sets him up into a better position than your recovery is setting up for you. That could be a really fun, good fix to your butterfly. It would feel smoother. We want butterfly to feel smooth. And ultimately, the power you're clearly generating would be more effective. So I think it's that pull is too wide, and I think your entry is too wide as well. So you're just generally too wide with the arms. If we can get those a bit more narrow, a bit more in line with our strength, right? A bit more in line with a streamlined body position, I think that you're going to see some really nice results with that, right? That takes time and effort, but it's something to consider. All right, so let's move over to you, Ben. We're in lane 4. Take your marks, moving our back foot a lot. Hopefully we're not about to go. Good, we're not about to go. Head ducking before it's seeming like your back leg is moving. So trying to get that first reaction to be firing that back leg. You might be standing up too much. We can see how fast that back leg is flying up, but you know what? You get a lot of height and air, and I kind of like that. Just maybe a bit more direction back. I do love the pop though. Pretty darn good. Hard from this perspective. If you have I think you do have other races where we have better perspective. pay more attention to that and any notes that I give there than the notes here. Looking pretty darn good. Maybe that head is not getting as far forward on the breathing strokes as we would like it to. Although, you know what? I think that's just me making stuff up. I think that looks pretty darn good to me. Let's watch in full speed here. Sometimes, interestingly, slow motion doesn't actually help us. Ooh, we get a nice close-up. Good to the wall. Great turn by the looks of that. That was a very efficient turn. Good underwater. I'm wondering if you went farther on your underwater on the turn than you did on the dive. I kind of love that, but practically hate it. Clearly shows that you're focusing on the underwater that you're doing on your turn, but you are moving faster off of the dive than you ever will moving off of the turn. So if we're moving faster off the dive, we want to make sure that we're preserving that speed and energy as long as we can in that streamline. So if you can do that far underwater on the turn, maybe consider expanding the distance on the dive. A lot of breathing. I'm okay with that because you're pretty darn efficient even when you are breathing, but I'm hoping that you get your head down coming into the finish. Butterfly, yeah, so you'd get your head down for the last stroke there, but butterfly, more than even other strokes are, is obstructed by its breath, right? It doesn't let us be as in line usually as we possibly can. At bare minimum, you are kind of having to headbutt the water. Okay, a lot of officials in this race. I'd love to see you just try and get your head down for a couple more strokes coming into the finish, but overall, great distance to the wall. So, great swim, dude.